Great. All right. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all and formally call to order the MAPC Executive Committee meeting for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. The Executive Committee meeting is being conducted remotely via Zoom video conference consistent with Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. This obviously includes the extension until July 15th, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's Executive Order of March 12th, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Members of the public may view the proceedings either live or in syndication at youtube.com/user/MAPC Metro Boston. All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to call roll. So if everyone will just get off mute for a minute, I'm going to get this going. Okay. Sharonda Almeida.
Here.
Kurt Bellavance. Karen Canfield. Adam Chapdelaine.
Here.
Bob Cohen. Tom Daniel.
Here.
John DePriest.
Here.
Yolanda Greaves. Sandra Hackman. Mo Handel. Tabor Keeley.
I am here.
Angie Liu.
Here.
Steve Olenoff. George Proakis.
Here.
Courtney Rainey. Jenny Raitt.
Here.
Vandana Rao.
Present.
Sam Seidel.
Here.
Steve Silvera. Lauren Shurtleff. Juan Vega.
Present.
On location. I love it. Elaine Vanya.
Here.
And Erin Wortman here. And if you attended, if you missed roll call, if you could just drop your name in the chat so we can make sure to capture that you're here. I know I kind of flew through those kind of quickly. So again, if you missed roll call and you are here, just type it in the chat so we can make sure to say you're here. Oh, and I'm sorry, Keith. Sorry, not on my list. Apologies in advance. Okay, so next up on the agenda is the report of the treasurer, and there is no monthly income and expense statements this month. We will have it for next month. I don't know if Mark, you want to say anything?
Well, I think the minutes came before the treasurer's report, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
I just got really excited.
All right. Well, I would only say on the treasurer's report, yes. Sheila is still working on the January income statement, so we will have no treasurer's report today unless Sam wishes to ad lib, which of course is always his prerogative, and which he's known to do on occasion. But otherwise, we will have probably January and February at the April meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And apologies for taking that out of order. Sorry about that. So next up on the agenda is the approval of minutes from February 16th, 2022. Tom Daniel, we did capture your edit beforehand, so thank you so much for that. Is there any changes or edits that are necessary at this time? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion. I
would only, if I could, Erin, apologize for the fact that a marginal comment on the earlier draft was not deleted when we sent the minutes out. So obviously we will delete that marginal comment because the correction has been made and further addressed by Tom's edit. So the minutes being approved are without the marginal editing remark.
Oh, Sharonda.
Hi, I thought I was at those two meetings. I think we're just doing February, but I didn't see my name on the January or February attending list, but I do believe I was there. So that would be my only addition.
Okay. We'll definitely confirm that if that's okay with you, so we can move forward and approve it. And if you're there, we'll include your name. And if you weren't, we'll just let you know. Sound good?
Yes, and that was for both January and February. I just wasn't noticing. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely make sure of that, Sharonda. Sorry about that. And is that a motion? Perhaps?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank
Is this
you,
motion for
Sharonda.
both minutes or just the one? Are we doing one at a time?
Yeah, we were
do-
sent 2 sets of minutes is why we ask, I think. So we're
Right.
wondering if we're
Okay.
approving both together, which I would move to approve both of them together unless someone
I
else.
love that, Sharonda. Thank you. And Tabor, was that a second for both?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there questions? Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, everyone go off mute. Lizzie, I saw your chat message. It appears there's a little problem getting in for some people, but that's okay. We'll keep it moving as we can, and we'll try and troubleshoot the people getting in. All right, everyone off mute. Here we go. Sharonda,
Aye.
Kurt, Bellavance, Karen Canfield, Adam Chapdelaine,
Aye.
Bob Cohen, Tom Daniel,
Aye.
John DePriest, Yolanda Greaves, Sandra Hackman, Mo Handel, Tabor Keeley, Angie Lou.
Yes.
Aye. Okay. I know I flew by a couple of you, so just if I missed you, just drop it in the chat too. Angie, I heard the aye. Thank you. Steve Olenoff, George Proakis, Courtney Rainey, Jenny Wright, aye. Vandana Rao,
Aye.
Sam Seidel,
Aye.
Steve Silvera, Lauren Shartliff,
Aye.
Juan Vega,
Aye.
Elaine Vanya,
Aye.
and me, Erin Wortman. Aye. All right, and with that, motion carries. Both sets of minutes are approved. Sorry about that little bit of confusion, everyone. All right, next up on the agenda is the report of the Executive Director. Mark?
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Sorry about that. I don't know why we do seem to be having a few technical difficulties today, but I'm glad everyone can hear me. Hopefully that will remain the case. The Executive Director's report is before you. It's a 3-month report, 3-month plus this time. So it is a little bit long, although Amanda Linehan and I both wrangled it down to, I think, 24 pages. I think it started at around 40. The staff are very eager to communicate with you about their projects. I will provide a few highlights, and then as part of my Executive Director's report, I'd like to talk a little bit about reopening, if I could. First of all, in the arts and culture section, I want to draw particular attention to some of our work with the city and stakeholders on the repurposing of what will be the Malden Center for Arts and Culture. You can read that on page 1. That's a very exciting project. It's very important to the city. And I am particularly proud of the fact that we are engaging with a very diverse set of voices around the future of that building, and proud of the work that our staff has been doing in that regard. We're really looking forward to going to the first activity at the new building. Under clean energy, Cami has a lot to communicate, as she always does, a lot going on. But in my mind, one of the most important items is actually the last one on page 4, which is the stretch code update and net zero code advocacy. Under the new roadmap bill, there are actually 2 new codes coming out. One is an update to the existing stretch code, which will go into place with all of the communities. I think it's like something like 290 communities that have adopted the stretch code. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. Those changes will eventually go into effect automatically in all of those communities once the stretch code update is approved, and unless the community explicitly opts out. And then there is the additional code called the net zero code that individual communities will be able to opt into. And drafts of those were both put forward by DOER in February. And Cami has led an effort to comment in great detail on both of them. We are supportive of many of the recommendations that DOER is making, particularly in the stretch code update. we are asking for a more robust policy in the net zero code. You can read the statement, you can see the webinar. Both of those are linked in the executive director's report. There is a joint project that is mentioned in several parts of your report. Communications, data services, and I believe in land use, or oddly, it might not be in land use, but it is a research report that has been released with the principal author being Chris Kushel, and a great deal of active support and engagement from the data services department, called Rethinking the Retail Strip, which is about the future of small, often underutilized suburban shopping malls. The study is very innovative, very forward-looking. We've received a tremendous amount of media attention as a result. And I'm very proud of the work that Chris and the data services team have done. I hope that you will all take a look at the report if you haven't already. Again, it is linked. It's probably linked in several places in the ED report, but I see it on page 5 under Rethinking the Retail Strip. Moving ahead into land use, I want to note that just like in regard to the codes being issued in draft form by DOER, we have also commented extensively on the guidelines released by DHCD and EOHED on section 3A of chapter 40A, the new so-called multifamily requirement for MBTA communities. I'm sure that many of you know about the new statute, and some of you probably know about the new guidelines that set up ways for individual communities to comply with the new law. We have held, I think, at least 5 webinars, all of which have been attended by Secretary Keneally, with municipal officials and other interested parties, but particularly municipal officials, to discuss the guidelines. And early this week, I think on Monday, we submitted our detailed comments based in part on what we heard from local authorities, those webinars, but also from the conversations that we've been having extensively with communities, housing developers, and housing advocates over the course of the past several months since the draft guidelines were released. I would be glad to entertain any questions on this issue, but I would urge you all to take a look at the link that is included under MBTA communities in the housing section on page 11. And in that, that set of resources, what we call the MBTA Multifamily Zoning Resource Library, you can find a copy of our comments. And obviously, I'd be glad to discuss that with anyone who wants to talk it over. I want to give kudos to the Economic Development Division under our new leader, Angela Brown. Despite the fact that we are a little short-staffed in that division at the moment, we have actually been able to get out 2 major grant applications over the course of the past several months. One of them is described here on page 13, which is the response to the EDA's Good Jobs Challenge, which was a joint response by the City of Boston's Office of Workforce Development, MAPC, and a variety of partners in 3 sectors: clean energy, childcare, and healthcare. It is focused on communities beyond Boston. It is not only limited to Boston. And I have to say, it was a very heavy lift of an application, which MAPC contributed to tremendously. And if it's funded, fingers crossed, we are going to contribute tremendously to its implementation. I think even if it isn't funded, the process of completing the application has tremendously increased our connections in those sectors and with the City of Boston in the workforce arena. Not in this proposal, but I mean in this report, but in the next one, you'll see that we also have completed on our own an application for an additional $400,000 of funding under the Economic Adjustment Assistance Program of EDA. There is a fairly high likelihood we will receive that one. That one's a little less competitive. We're not 100% sure, but I do think we will obtain it. and we'll be able to use it for our economic development work with municipalities and with workforce advocates and others in actually 5 separate areas that are particularly critical to the Boston area. And this will enable us to actually continue some of our work on cybersecurity issues, despite the fact that we were not funded in one of the earlier applications exclusively on that topic area that we submitted earlier this year. I would also draw your attention to the emergency preparedness practice that's discussed on page 14. We've always done various elements of emergency preparedness here at MAPC, some of it through our environment department, through our long-standing work on hazard mitigation plans, and other work through our climate efforts in both environment and clean energy. But this year, the folks at Municipal Collaboration, working with those other departments, have established more formally an emergency preparedness practice that includes the staff from our Health and Medical Coordinating Coalition, and seems particularly appropriate as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can read about some of our efforts on page 14, and I want to thank Mark Fine and Beth Robert and Amy Riley for their work to put that practice together. I think that's going to become an important practice in future work from MAPC. Down at the bottom of page 13 and going on to 14, I want to note that all 6 communities participating in the Racial Equity Municipal Action Plan program have completed their presentations and completed their final plans. Great kudos to Raul Gonzalez and the other members of the team who worked with the communities throughout the last year. It's a difficult and challenging project, obviously more so in some communities than in others. We are now working with our partners at the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and also the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, to figure out what the program will look like in year 2. And we'll have more on that coming up in the future. I believe the last couple of items just 2 more items I'd like to draw attention to are the Hybrid Engagement Lab. We have really, under Emily Torres-Cullinan's leadership, become a leader in hybrid engagement technologies. You can see this reported on in page 16, along with a link to our Hybrid Engagement Hub. I expect that we at MAPC will be using that a lot more in the future, and I know municipalities will be using it substantially, as many of them already have. And I'll close in terms of the report itself by noting we've gotten 2 important grants in the last 3 months. The Barr Foundation has approved MAPC's 3-year, $3 million grant application for clean energy, mobility, and climate resilience, continuing a partnership with the foundation that now spans over 20 years of continuous funding. And we have also received, on the very opposite end, a new grant from the Conine Foundation, which was created by the founders of Wayfair. They are particularly focused on bike infrastructure and trails, and they have given us a multi-year $600,000 grant for a variety of work that is described in the transportation section of the executive director's report. The Barr Foundation grant is described on page 15, and the Conine Foundation grant is described on page 20. I guess there is one more item I wanted to mention. A big kudos to Mara Holland and Eric Barasa for their works with the new communities that are joining the Blue Bikes system. You'll see on page 22 a description of a new model for operation fees for those communities, and a new financing system that has come to us through a grant from the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation. It's always been our goal to expand Blue Bikes beyond the original 4 communities, and this has finally given us the ability to do so in what we hope will be a sustainable mechanism. I'm going to pause there for a moment before we move on to a brief remarks on reopening, and just see if people have any questions.
And if anyone has questions, Mark, you can feel free to call on them.
Okay. Maybe not. Okay.
Not a bad sign. All right. Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay. On
So
reopening, folks, we are continuing our plans to reopen the office on the 11th of April. It has been open since the 22nd of February on what we call our partially open status or voluntary status, with staff able to come in. Today, I think there are 10 people in the office, distributed across the 3 floors. when we reopen on the 11th of April, all staff will be required to report to the office at least 2 times per week on average. Doesn't have to be 2 days every week, but over a 3-month period, it's supposed to average out at least 2 days per week. And each director is making their own plan for how to implement that system. They do vary from department to department. Angela Howard, who is on the line, our Director of Equity and Culture, who oversees our human resources and operation divisions, is in the process of a lot of work dealing with safety, dealing with signing in issues, dealing with answering human resource related questions about coming back to the office, and a wide variety of other issues. As I often say, every manager and employer, including many of you on this call, are dealing with this issue with no guidebook. We're all figuring out how to do it. And I have said to the staff, I say to you, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to stand up and admit them and make changes. We are watching the BA2 variant, like I think a lot of people are right now, to see if we can stick with the April 11th date. But at the moment, we are planning to reopen our offices at that point in time. The masking requirement in common spaces will remain in effect at the office when we reopen. I don't know if it will last. I don't know how long it will last after that, but at least when we reopen, there will be a masking requirement in common spaces. And as I think you know, all MAPC staff people are required to be fully vaccinated and up to date with their vaccinations. That includes the most recent booster, unless there is a medical reason to the contrary. And I'm glad to answer any questions on reopening if you wish. Can't
Any
believe that
questions?
nobody has any questions for me today.
I have one.
Great.
Rhonda.
So does
No,
that
just
mean
kidding.
does coming just want to make sure I get on the minutes. No, we can. Does coming and opening the office also include some in-person meetings? Are you doing some? I'm not necessarily inquiring about the executive committee, but have you guys been? Are you guys planning to host some smaller meetings?
I think I'm interpreting you correctly, Sharonda, to mean with guests from outside the staff. Is that right? Yeah, because obviously there will be plenty of internal meetings among the staff. So that situation is actually changing just in the last couple of days. When I originally sent out the notice to staff, the building was still closed to outside visitors. And we were assuming that when we returned on April 11th, there would at least be a short period of time when the building was still closed to outside visitors and we couldn't have them in the building. Now that just a couple of days ago, the building announced that they were reopening under certain protocols. And we haven't even had a chance to discuss internally what that means in terms of meetings with external guests. And I know you understand that the reason you folks are all called external guests is not because you are external to the organization, but because you are not the staff person of a tenant here. Sharonda, my expectation is that we will not be open for external guests on the 11th of April. I think we need a period of time, probably 2 to 4 weeks, for the staff to get used to working in the office just as staff. And then once we seem to be on an even keel, I think we'll start discussing with them, okay, what are the protocols we should use to bring in outside guests? But I don't want to try and cram that in at the same time that people are getting used to things in the office just when they're coming back. I think one of the things we have to remember is that since March of 2020, we have hired almost 30 new staff people who have almost never been to the office.
I can't believe that.
and they're going to have to be on board and get used to things and realize, you know, just trying to get used to things. And I don't want to overlay with that the pressure of bringing in outside parties. So give us probably a month and we'll make some good decisions about how to handle that. I am eager to have guests at the office when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys also, I don't know, the common's not too far away. I guess I miss you all. Like, I haven't seen y'all in a while. We need to do a summer meetup or something, you know?
We are starting again. We're starting. I give Ella Wise, who's now at the BPDA, credit for this. When she was at MAPC last year, she started Tuesday lunches on the Common. I think they're 12:30. I think we leave from MAPC at 12:15. It's a little too windy and cold this Tuesday, but that's only going to get better. Travis Pollock on our transportation staff has inherited that great mantle from Ella, and he is now organizing them. And any member of the executive committee who wishes to join us at 12:15 in front of the office on Tuesday afternoons is very welcome to do so for lunch.
Thanks, Mark. That's good to know.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
I don't know if Lizzie had anything to add on anything. No? Okay.
She does not. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Next up on the agenda is legislative committee update. I'm going to call on Keith, the immediate past president, but also our legislative chair. Keith.
Thanks so much, Erin. Hello, all. The Legislative Committee does not bring you any recommendations to act on today, but that doesn't mean that we didn't have a spirited time at our monthly meeting discussing it was infrastructure and investment and jobs this month. So really appreciated that opportunity. And I'm looking to see, I see Leah leaning in, so I'm gonna call on her to for starters from staff. So thanks very much.
Awesome, thanks, Keith. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. So I am so excited to get to introduce a new member to the government affairs team, Georgia Barlow, who comes to us from out of state, not even just out of the region, and brings with her a wealth of knowledge of equity work and engagement on disaster relief and preparedness. I'll turn it to her to give a quick introduction. We're really excited to bring her to the table and get to work with you guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm Georgia Barlow, like Leah said, and I just joined the government affairs team about a week and a half ago. So getting caught up, I came from most recently being in New Orleans for about 8 years, and with a background in racial equity policy, disaster preparedness, and public health. So I'm really excited to work with the different departments here to really work on collaboration and coalition work, as well as that regional work as well. So I'm excited to hear from you all today, hear the updates, and get to work with you going forward.
Thanks, Georgia. We are also in a time when there's lots of movement in the legislature. We're getting to those final months of session where they're going to be wrapping up at the end of July. The governor last month had filed a supplemental budget. The House took it up and it is going to the Senate on Thursday of this week. One of the things to draw your attention to, and we'll circulate a summary of the bill to you guys very shortly. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there was a question that I missed. Erin, do you want to jump in, or is there a hand?
Is there a hand?
Okay. Never mind. Sorry about that. So the supplemental budget does include funding for winter road repair. About $100 million is in the current proposal. The governor had also included $100 million for Chapter 90 and $150 million thereabout for MVP. Neither of those two pots of funding are currently under consideration. There are amendments to include both. We're not sure exactly what's going on in the legislature, but lots of conversations about how important those funding sources are for communities and how utilized they are within the region. But it is good to see that that $100 million for winter road repair assistance is included on the Senate side as well. There's also money included for COVID expenses. And then there are some extensions of COVID related legislation. So the ability for restaurant dining to occur outside with the liquor licenses and for liquor to be purchased at restaurants for off-site consumption would continue for another year. And similarly, some of the eviction diversion measures would also be extended for another year. And those are all set to expire in the next month or two. There's also more money included for housing assistance and for housing fuel, with all of the fuel hikes that we're seeing recently, that additional increase in LIHEAP. The House had put in $5 million and the Senate is proposing $40 million. So really trying to meet the increase in need that we're seeing just over the course of the past month, with fuel heat changing up so much. So I think it'll be interesting to sort of see what gets added in on the Senate side. And I do expect that that'll keep moving pretty quickly, because then we have to get ready for the fiscal 23 budget debate, which has been sort of going on in the background all of this time. The governor had filed his proposal back in January. There have been oversight hearings through the past few months, and we're gearing up for it to for a debate to take place in the House next month. So we'll be reaching out to you guys with more updates as to how that's going, and encourage you, if you see your legislator around town, if you haven't had a chance to talk to them recently, do let them know how excited you are and we are for district local technical assistance funding. We are seeking an increase this year to that account, to really support all of the planning efforts that are ongoing to make sure that communities are able to do the work, and lay the foundation for all of these federal funds that are coming, and that we hope will come to Massachusetts if we can plan for it appropriately. So just want to put that flag out there. Watch your emails for more information coming from the government affairs team. And then I want to, the other piece we're still watching for is ARPA. The House and Senate have taken up one tranche of ARPA funds already this year. The administration is working to get those dollars out the door, and there still are unallocated funds from ARPA at the state level that we hope to see move soon. That has been our message throughout, is that we need to program these dollars quickly. So if there are new programs, there's time to get them up and running so communities can utilize them. But we're not sure exactly when that's going to happen. So no certainty there in all of our conversations, but hope to know more soon. On other fiscal issues, I'm going to turn to Kasha to give a quick update of the bond bill that the governor filed, which again is a little different than budget because it's not totally sure money. It's money that we'll then have to have a conversation with the administration about actually allocating within our bond cap, which continues to be much lower than the amount of money that we put in bond bills every year. So it's not a sure thing as funding through the fiscal budget, but it's a very important source of program dollars for us to invest in the state. And maybe a little bit too about where we're at with some of the federal pieces that we talked about at the LegCom meeting, Kasha.
Sure, that sounds good. Thanks, Leah. So late last week, Governor Baker filed a $9.7 billion infrastructure bond bill, which was very exciting. We knew this was coming for some time. So really the intent of this bond bill was to ensure that the Commonwealth has the matching dollars necessary in order to take advantage of the increase in formula funds available in IIJA, as well as to ensure that Massachusetts is competitive with all of these new discretionary grant opportunities that are becoming available. And so that line item around the funds for discretionary grants is actually the largest within this $9.7 billion package. There's about $3.5 billion that's allocated specifically for matching funds for those discretionary grants. Otherwise, most of what I've heard from folks is that the bill is pretty straightforward about what folks had expected. I think a couple of provisions that are of interest to this group is that there's about $55 million in authorizations for a number of different local programs, including Complete Streets, the Shared Streets Program, the Municipal Pavement Program, a couple others. And then also there's about $200 million to support the EEA's Clean Transportation Program. That includes a number of different items from, expanding EV charging infrastructure. There's some language about e-bike incentives. So that's, to me, a signal to a real commitment to expand electrification opportunities. The bill is now with the Joint Transportation Committee. And, like Leah was saying about ARPA, the same is true about IIJA dollars. We're really eager to see those funds move forward quickly because these NOFOs for the discretionary funds are rolling out. So that's been one of our big pushes this session. Any questions or anything that I've missed, Lizzie? Okay.
That's what we've got. Thank you guys so much for giving us the opportunity to keep you updated. I'll turn it to Lizzie if there's anything else.
No, I was just going to say it's a really busy time. There's just a lot that we're watching, and we're going to be very in touch very soon with DLTA advocacy around the budget. So stay tuned for that. We are used to this kind of like race to the finish line, but there's definitely a lot going on. Stay tuned.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Government Affairs team. Thank you, Lizzie. Welcome, Georgia. Happy to have you. Yeah. Great. So if there's no other questions or comments on that, we are going to move to the project update, which it feels like it's been a long time since we had like a true project update. We've just had so much going on. So I'm really excited today. I don't know if Mark, you'd like to introduce the project title and the staff member, but that would be great.
So the staff member that I'm going to introduce is our own Jesse Way, who for some reason is in the bottom right hand corner of my screen. I don't know, but he is still one of our newer members of the clean energy team, although I would not call him exactly new. Jesse is going to speak to us about some of our net zero planning efforts in several communities north of Boston, and I'm going to let him take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I have some slides, if it's all right if I share my screen.
Sure.
All right. Oh, looks like I don't have permission to do that yet.
Oh, Andrea, could you give Jesse permission?
Yes, making him a co-host right now.
Okay.
All right. As we work on that, I'll just introduce myself. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. As Mark said, I'm Jesse Way. I'm a clean energy specialist on our clean energy team here at MAPC. I do a lot of different things in my role, but my content expertise mostly focuses on clean transportation and climate action planning. And so I have some slides that I'll run through today. Like Mark said, I'll be giving you a brief overview of a project we recently kicked off that we refer to as the North Suffolk Regional Zero Carbon Action Plan, or ZCAP, as we so lovingly call it on our team. And before I jump into this, I do want to give a shout out to my colleague, Francelis Mario Suarez, who's been instrumental to this project, but was unable to co-present with me since she's on vacation this week, unfortunately, but wanted to make sure she was getting her credit as well. And also shout out Julie Curdy, who's been an excellent project advisor for this project. All right, so this is a quick peek at what I'll be running through today. We'll spend a bit of time up front providing some background information to contextualize this project. Then I'll quickly go through what we've been working on so far, followed by taking a look at kind of what we have planned over the course of the next year, which is the lifespan of the project. So jumping into some context setting. Before we talk about the actual project, it's important to mention a relatively new organization, and that's the North Suffolk Office of Resilience and Sustainability. And so this office was set up as a regional collaboration between Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop, with support from MAPC, and is funded through the Barr Foundation. The purpose of the office is to create a shared resource between the three communities to address challenges related to climate change, including both greenhouse gas emissions mitigation and resilience to the impacts of climate change. So in the words of the office, they will engage residents of all three communities in developing projects and programs to ensure these cities survive and thrive in a changing climate. The office will address issues of sea level rise, extreme heat, energy use, waste reduction, and other factors that affect livability. So with that context in mind, I can now turn to the projects at hand. At a high level, the project is focused on developing a regional action plan to put the three communities on a path to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And so basically, we'll be putting together a set of concrete actions the municipalities can take to achieve deep emissions reductions across the entire community. We're not just talking about municipal operations here. This plan includes all greenhouse gases emitted within the bounds of the community, so that includes private sources as well. And one of the things that makes this project unique to some of the other climate action plans that we've developed with other communities is that it will have an emphasis on actions that can be taken at a regional level, which will ideally help ease the implementation burden on the individual municipalities. So how is this project being funded? Well, MAPC worked closely with the North Suffolk office to apply for an efficiency and regionalization grant, which is offered through the Community Compact Cabinet. And this grant provides financial support for government entities interested in implementing regionalization and other efficiency initiatives that allow for long-term sustainability. So applying for this grant required both close collaboration internally, so between our clean energy and municipal collaboration team, and externally between MAPC and the North Suffolk office. So I'll quickly go through, now that we have that context in place, kind of what we've done so far in the project. And I'll mention that the project kicked off about a month and a half ago. So, there's a limit to what we've done so far, but this project will run through February of next year. So, still kind of in the beginning phases. There are 3 areas we focused on to kick this project off. The first 2 items here we view as really foundational to a lot of the climate action work that we do, because they do inform the rest of the projects. So starting at the top of the slide, we'd like to start these projects off with both internal and external stakeholder engagement. So internal stakeholder engagement includes holding interviews with key municipal staff to learn more about their history, priorities, concerns, anything like that related to climate action planning. We also use these as an opportunity to kind of get a landscape of other key stakeholders, and then any kind of political, social, or other dynamics that we need to be aware of as we move forward throughout the process. So for the case, in the case of this project, unfortunately, we weren't funded for the total grant amount that we applied for. So we have passed off some of the responsibility for the stakeholder engagement work to the North Suffolk office, which it's great that they have that regional resource that can take on that role. So in terms of our role here, we helped identify stakeholders, help draft interview questions, and then we'll provide review and feedback on final stakeholder analysis. Whereas they've kind of taken the lead role in coordinating and running the interviews with the stakeholders. We do sit in on them, so we have that context as we move forward, but coordinating those interviews takes a lot of time, and luckily they've offered to do that. So it's been really great to work with them. And then I'll just mention that external stakeholder engagement is a similar process, but looks at engaging key community stakeholders. So that could be businesses, community-based organizations, and any other stakeholders that are identified throughout the process. So moving down the slide to the second item on the list, we're currently in the process of developing a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So we'll do that for each municipality using the MAPC greenhouse gas emissions inventory tool. And then we'll take those 3 and aggregate them together to get a greenhouse gas inventory for the region. And the developing a greenhouse gas inventory is important because it helps us identify their major sources of emissions within the communities, which can then further down the line help us prioritize which potential climate actions will be most effective in reducing emissions. And additionally, by creating these emissions inventory baselines, the municipalities can also periodically update those emission inventories to track their progress to their goals. And then in addition to the emissions inventory, we're also developing a project inventory so that we have a better sense of what actions the municipalities have already taken or plan to take to address climate change, which will once again help us when we're trying to determine which strategies are most likely to result in the greatest greenhouse gas reductions. And then I'm going to skip the final section on this slide because I dig a little deeper on our next slide. So one of the really key components of an effective zero carbon action plan is community engagement. As I'm sure you all know, community engagement serves kind of 2 key purposes. First, it ensures that the community's voices are reflected in the final plan. And second, it helps raise awareness and gain buy-in for the plan, which is really key if the plan's going to be implemented successfully. Because if you develop a plan and no one cares about it, and no one's thought into it, you're not going to have success. So community engagement helps alleviate some of that concern. And one of the things I wanted to point out here is that we've taken a couple of unique approaches to community engagement for this project. So the first thing we've done is that we've partnered with Green Roots, which is a community-based environmental justice organization that operates in Chelsea. And they have really deep roots within the community. I'm sure that some of you are aware of this organization and have worked with them before. But our goal is to really tap into their deep knowledge of the community and do our best to effectively engage the community members without being a burden. So really coming to meet them where they are. And we also plan to collaborate with Green Roots closely as we move on to the latter parts of the project and ensure that their input is fully integrated into the final report. So I want to be really clear here. This is not us asking them to participate without funding. They are a paid consultant on the project, and we view them as an equal partner. So that's really important to highlight there, because that is not always the case with community-based organizations, and we wanted to make sure we did it right for this project. The second unique approach that I want to highlight here is that when we scoped the work for this and applied for the grant, we actually intentionally kept the community engagement portion of this vague, so that we had an opportunity to customize it to each community based on the stakeholder engagement that we did. So we wanted to make sure that we really had the flexibility to develop an engagement plan that we thought would be most effective based on stakeholder engagement and having conversations with Green Roots and other stakeholders. So looking ahead, we have a bit of a simplistic project timeline here. And as mentioned, we're in the midst of developing the project and emissions inventories and in the process of supporting the North Suffolk office with the stakeholder engagement. We've also had some preliminary community engagement conversations with Green Roots and the North Suffolk office, but we still have the bulk of work to do in that category. The plan is to develop engagement goals in the next month and then develop an engagement plan, followed by 2 kind of large rounds of community engagement. So after the first round of community engagement, we'll put together a list of strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in each of the communities and at a regional level. And then after the second round of community engagement, we'll develop a prioritized list of strategies that will then feed into drafting and finalizing the climate action plan, which, as mentioned earlier, we hope to do by February of next year. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Jesse, one of the things I think people might be interested in is, I know you're only at the beginning of the process, but what are some typical kinds of elements of the action plan? What are some of the likely substantive outcomes that that might be engaged in reaching these goals?
Yeah, so we typically develop a list of concrete actions or strategies that can be grouped into key categories, and those categories are often transportation, buildings, and electricity or energy are the 3 primary categories of emissions. We also do a little bit of work on waste and wastewater treatment. But there's a number of actions that folks can take. It's hard to pick out just a few because there are so many. I guess I would say if folks are interested in learning more about that, we have released a net zero action playbook that has different chapters that cover these kind of major sources of emissions and lays out a lot of key actions that municipalities can take, including implementation considerations and key examples of some of these strategies. So it's things like installing EV charging stations, looking at your permitting and zoning to ensure that it's streamlined for solar developments, and efficiency measures. So yeah, lots of actions, and like I said, it's summarized well in our net zero action playbook.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. I know, Steve Olenoff, I see your hand up, and anyone else that has questions, please raise your hand as well.
Yeah, so how are you going to get to the average person in their homes to get them to convert to heat pumps? Actually, is what they need to do, because nothing is going to happen until you can do that. And one thing in the way now that still is the heating companies, oil companies in particular, who, if you ask them, most of them still don't even believe that heat pumps work. I'm looking at a local company because I noticed they added the words, it was the name of the town and this is oil, and they named they added on, looks like they actually added a word, it says and air. So they're starting to recognize a little bit, but I just looked at their website and you have to find one page on heat pumps. And there are other pages talking about air conditioning using really the same kind of, where they could use a heat pump for very little extra money, I would think. They just say air conditioning instead of air conditioning and heating. So if they're still selling oil heat and just regular air conditioning without a heat pump, because then a heat pump is just an air conditioner that works in two directions. How are we getting through to those people in those companies? How are you going to do that?
Steve, that's a really good question, and I'm not going to pretend to have all of the answers, but it's just important to, when we think about putting together these plans, remember what's within the sphere of influence for municipalities. So, we can't expect to necessarily solve all of these problems, but what steps can we take? And you can do things like endorsing the new building codes will help with new development, but in terms of existing development, there are heat smart, cool smart campaigns that municipalities can undertake, which deals more with the awareness of that. Certainly engaging the workforce and the industry to try and encourage them to be more upfront with the electric heating options. But yeah, ultimately it's keeping in mind what is within the influence of the municipality and kind of working within that frame. Also advocating at the state level for more stringent policies around this is another thing that can be done, and I'm sure Lizzie could elaborate more on that.
Yeah, it just seems that the educational process is not being done. You've got to get to the people, you've got to get to those oil companies, even though they may not want to hear it, that end of their business is going out of business. And they don't want to admit it, but you've got to get, it's a big education process, and I just don't see it happening.
It's certainly a monumental task, but it is possible, but it'll take a concerted effort.
Thank you.
Great. I see a question from Karen. Karen?
Hello, everybody. I look forward to getting in a room with everyone sometime soon. I'm getting a little tired of this room. I just quickly, along the same sort of lines of consistent misinformation, Jesse, maybe you can, I've heard contrary things from smart people, so I'm going to let you be the arbiter on this one, okay? Talking with municipalities, when you're talking about changing codes and making things, getting closer and closer to more efficient, clean energy. Many times I have been in a room where I've said, why aren't we mandating all new municipal construction has solar panels or is self-sufficient or move in that direction? I mean, building code is one thing. Often the reaction is, oh, we're maxed out. We can't add more to the grid. And I don't understand that. So you're the expert. So I'm going to ask you, it is so counterintuitive to me to what the goals are at every level that I don't understand that. Have you heard that, or do you have any insight?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a simple answer here. The landscape for utilities is diverse based on communities. Some have municipal light plants, some have Eversource, some have National Grid. I think saying broadly that we're capped out on solar, I think is probably people being a little disingenuous. So I would recommend reaching out to your local utility and engaging with them if you are interested at looking at something like installing solar panels on municipal roofs, because they're the only ones who will really be able to answer that question for you and provide the resources that they offer to help subsidize that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my suspicion.
But my guess is that you're not tapped out, that you would be able to install solar panels. But once again, yeah, checking with your utility is always the best course of action there.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Karen. I just want to kind of put a sustainable plug as well. Solar panels are not the only opportunity we have with municipal spaces and infrastructure, like battery storage. Like there's a lot of opportunity that isn't, because I hear it a lot as well, particularly with roofs. Like our roofs are 10, 15 years old. We're not putting, ballast solar panels on that. I get it. So let's be creative. Let's think of other ways that we can, let's talk about building envelopes. Let's talk about water consumption, conservation and stuff like that. There's a lot of opportunity. And I know everyone thinks about solar panels, but there's definitely opportunity. And I definitely want to plug the Playbook as well. It's great, truly. And I've shared that with Cami as well.
And I'll also mention as well that there are municipalities out there who have adopted ordinances or standards that require all new municipal buildings. Sometimes there's a size threshold to be net zero. So those requirements are out there, and I'd be happy to point you towards them if that would be helpful.
And if you're an Eversource community, they kind of created an internal process to assist municipalities now with expediting and making it really easy to take part in SMART and stuff like that. If you're Eversource, if you're not Eversource, I'm sure other utility companies like National Grid and Unitel are pretty close behind, if not on the same page. Anyway, Tabor, question?
Oh, just a comment directing toward Karen's point. In my business, in the commercial real estate field, we end up with this all the time. And typically that maxed out is based on a tax credit. And therefore, you can do it if you want, but it's not going to make financial sense to you the way it did just last week, or to your neighbor across the street, because they got SRECs back from the state, or they've got other financial incentives, and National Grid and Eversource both go back and forth on where they're maxed out. And a lot of that has to do with their capacity to handle additional product on the street. But with the municipal, obviously that wouldn't necessarily apply, and it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just made it maybe a little more expensive.
Great, thank you, Tabor. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Leah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, Erin. I just had one quick comment on the point being made about potential opportunity for collective action at the state level. I do want to flag that both branches are talking about potential legislation on building decarbonization and transportation decarbonization this session. So there are opportunities to bring ideas forward that communities are interested in, and where there are pain points that you guys are experiencing, please do let the government affairs team know. We're in lots of conversations with legislators, and we'd love to continue to make sure that we're putting forward ideas that will really help make these net zero carbon plans come alive and make it easier for residents to make these best choices going forward and sort of incentivize some of this work. So we're really excited about the possibilities, and that both branches are talking about it very seriously. And I think it is because of the work happening at the local level that is galvanizing legislators to take these steps and be very serious about moving us all forward. So it's a real credit to the work that communities are interested in doing with the clean energy team and with others around the state. So really excited.
Thank you, Leah. I'm not seeing anyone else's hand go up, so I want to take this opportunity now. Jesse, thank you so much for your presentation. And it was so nice to meet you. I'll speak for the executive committee on that. Really exciting work in those communities, and I know that work can be translated to other communities as well. So thank you so much for that presentation.
Great. Yeah, and thanks to all of you for inviting me. Much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. Very exciting work. I kind of geek out over this sort of thing. So thank you. I don't know if anyone noticed, but anyway. All right. So next up on the agenda is the approval of the nominating committee membership. So at this time, I'm going to call on Lizzie, because Mark is having ongoing technical issues, and I believe he has not signed back on yet, but that is a-okay because Lizzie is here and we can keep it moving.
Excellent. Thank you, Erin. Great. So we, up for your approval is the nominating committee. And we are appointing this nominating committee because we are just a little over 60 days out from our annual council meeting where we will elect officers and members of the executive committee. And I reached out to folks and they have all graciously agreed to serve. So I'm going to offer the full slate of nominating committee members for your approval. So from the city caucus, we have George Proakis. From the town caucus, we have Imai Ayo. From the gubernatorial caucus, we have Karen Canfield. From the ex officio caucus, we have Juan Vega, and then we're allowed to appoint one additional member, and we have Steve Silvera, who has agreed to serve. And that is the proposed nominating committee slate for your approval today.
Thank you so much. And I see Mark has joined us via his iPhone. You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, though.
Yes,
All
I'm sorry. For some reason, my MAPC desktop simply completely shut down. So I'm on by phone. But this is traditional. We do this every year. The executive committee is asked to approve the nominating committee. And Lizzie's done a great job of getting some new people involved who haven't been on before.
Yes, thank you, Lizzie, for that coordination. I know it's not super easy. It's easy once she asks, but we need to be thoughtful and we need to be intentional and we need to make sure that there's some diversity among the thinking and the representation on that nominating committee. So I really appreciate the work on that, and I really appreciate those who were on the call or maybe watching at home or in your office or watching this on replay. I appreciate those who said yes to this opportunity. I know it can be time consuming, and I really do appreciate it. So if there's no questions, I at this time will entertain a motion to accept the nominating committee.
I make that motion.
All right, so I heard John DePriest made that motion, and I heard Tabor Keeley second that motion. Is that okay with you all? All right, great.
Yes.
All right, great. I appreciate it. Any questions or comments at this time before I ask everyone to unmute? I'm not seeing any hands up, so that's great. Everyone, please unmute that votes. Gonna pull up my list here. All right, here we go. Sharonda.
Aye.
Kurt Bellavance. Karen Canfield.
Aye.
Adam Chapdelaine.
Aye.
Bob Cohen. Tom Daniel.
Aye.
John DePriest.
Aye.
Yolanda Greaves. Sandra Hackman.
Aye.
Mo Handel. Tabor Keeley.
Aye.
Angie Liu. Steve Olenoff.
Aye.
George Proakis.
Aye.
Courtney Rainey. Jenny Raitt.
Aye.
Vandana Rao.
Aye.
Sam Seidel.
Aye.
Steve Silvera. Lauren Shurtleff.
Aye.
Juan Vega.
Aye.
Elaine Vina.
Aye.
And Erin Wortman, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. The nominating committee has been formally approved by the executive committee. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, all.
Yes, thank you, Lizzie. So now get to work. All right, great. All right, so I guess that is also kind of a reminder as well that the nominating committee will be seeking nominations, and that paperwork will be going out shortly. Mark, do you want to say something quick on that?
I think you said it.
All right, great.
Yep, the paperwork will be going out shortly.
All right. And if you are interested or you would think someone else would be a great candidate, I definitely recommend, highly encourage you to, fill that out. Have a conversation with Sam, Sandra, Adam, or I if you have any outstanding questions about time commitment or the responsibilities of each position. There will be at least one vacancy on the officers, as not all 4 are remaining. So if you are interested or if you think someone would be great, obviously have that conversation, talk to them, fill out the form. The form is 1 page. And so the nominating committee can get to work. Any questions on that? All right, great. Thank you so much. Next up on the agenda is the date of the next executive committee meeting. So we have it as Wednesday, April 27th. It's a week later than typical. I am assuming that it is because of school vacation. Am I right? Yeah, I'm
Yes,
seeing the
that's
nod.
right.
Yeah, all right, great. So please make sure on your calendar it is marked as Wednesday, April 27th, same, time as usual, and it will be virtual again. Okay. Is there any other business, Lizzie or Mark, not known at the time of the posting of the agenda?
No.
Love it. All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion then to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Karen Canfield made that motion to adjourn. Adam seconded that motion. Thank you so much, everyone. If everyone could come off mute for a quick second, I'm going to run through the vote. So here we go. Sharonda.
Aye.
Kurt. Karen.
Yes.
Adam.
Yes.
Bob Cohen. Tom Daniel.
Yes.
John DePriest.
Yes.
Yolanda. Sandra.
Yes.
Mo. Tabor.
Yes.
Angie. Steve Olenoff.
Aye.
George.
Aye.
Courtney. Jenny.
Yes.
Vandana.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Steve Silvera. Lauren Shirtliff. Juan.
Yes.
Elaine.
Yes.
And Erin, yes, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 12:43 p.m. Thank you all for joining us. I hope everyone has a great day and enjoy.